just save, 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 hold on to it as tight as you can, maybe stuff it under the colchon, make sure nobody's trying to have a secret stash somewhere. Okay. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ciindeh. And on this channel, we talk about self-love, personal development, and empowerment. So as you can see, today it's a little bit different. I have a buddy. Again.
Hi everyone.
This is Maribel. She is a personal finance and investment coach, particularly with women and immigrant families. So guess what? This is a juicy topic, and I have brought in my expert here to help us discuss why being knowledgeable about your money is so important to feeling empowered, and especially as women. So Maribel, why don't you take a second to introduce yourself and let us know why you got into this industry and why you're so particularly passionate about this niche.
Yes. So hi everyone. My name is Maribel. As Ciindeh so graciously introduced me, I am a bilingual personal finance coach. Basically, I started off as being a certified income tax preparer because my mom had an income tax business. And as soon as I turned 18, which is the minimum legal age that you need to be to get that license, she's like, "You're getting this license because you're helping me out in the family business." And I was like, okay, but that wasn't my life plan at all. So I was like, I'm still going to go to college, get a degree, and, try to go make it out in corporate America. Being the first generation here, I'm just like, what's that life like? So I did that. I got my business degree. I went and I currently work in the entertainment industry, handling multi-million-dollar budgets as a finance manager. And even at that point, I was still like, okay, but what am I doing with my life? Like, it looks like a great path, pero this isn't really like my passion. So come COVID, I get really into personal finances, and I go out there and I look for Spanish content. Muy poquito encontré. There was a lot of Latin creators in the personal finance space, pero casi nada en español, y mucho menos for immigrant families, like people with ITINs, or people that are DACA status, right? A lot of it was assuming you're already born here and you have a social security number. So I saw the lack of information there, and I was like, you know what, Faja, I'm gonna do this because I got really into it. And so I'm bringing like 11 years of certified income tax experience in with my degree from college for business, and then putting in as well my experience in working in the finance industry. I'm sorry, in the entertainment industry, in the finance space for like over 4 years now. And tying a whole bow onto that with my first gen experience, porque like my parents were immigrants, right? They crossed that border. And when my dad got deported, me and my mom, we ended up living on the street. And it's like, it's very hard to relate to someone where you have to explain the first 30 minutes of your session, like, just what it is like to be part of an immigrant family. Yes. And then get to the nitty gritty. For me, it's like, okay, you're from an immigrant family, you got an ITIN or social security, great, moving on. Let's get to helping you set up your brokerage accounts, set up your investment accounts. And that's what led me to then found Our Wealth Matters. And I was like, we're going to make this legit. We're going to do it, And we're just going to help immigrant families and have bilingual content. Porque no, eso hace falta.
That is amazing. No, that's so true. And I can definitely relate. I'm Latina myself. So I know that even just growing up, going to college and doing that whole experience, the whole process for me was almost on my own because of the lack of knowledge. So I couldn't expect to take my FAFSA to my mom or my application to my mom and be like, here, can you help me out? It would be more like, hey mom, I'm doing this and I just need you to sign here. Or
yes,
there's no translation. The first part is even understanding it. So we're already wasting time there just trying to understand it or translate. So I definitely think that this is a super big topic, and I'm glad that you're doing the work that you're doing. So
yeah, I completely agree with you because there is, I think, especially for immigrant families, there's a lack of, we don't have those generations that came before us in the USA financial system who we can go to and be like, hey, I want to learn about investing, como se hace, what are the dangers? We don't have people or very little family, if any, here in the United States that we can ask about how to get into investing or how to manage our personal finances. And I know we're going to delve into this deeper, but then we also come with cultural norms about how money should be handled. And it's not necessarily in, hey, put it and invest it in the stock market.
Exactly. I was just about to lead into that part of the conversation. So obviously knowing about our personal finance, being first gen or whatever generation you are in, it's still super important. So that would being said, you were just touching on it. I was personally raised as you're going to get your job, earn as much as you can, trade your time for money, and then you're going to save it in your savings account, regular savings account, and then at most maybe a 401k. And that's it. Like the rest of the money, just save, 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 hold on to it as tight as you can, maybe stuff it under the colchon, make sure nobody finds, have a secret stash somewhere. And that's always been like the mentality. So as an investment coach, where do you think, and also being Christian, where do you think that mentality came from? And like, how could we move past it to actually make more money beyond just the paycheck and the 401k?
Yeah, so a lot to touch on there. So I think part of it comes from our parents come from countries, if it's Latino America, right? I don't want to speak for like everyone, but typically the financial system ain't the most stable, right? They've seen banks go down. They've seen money just up and poof. So I completely understand them when they're like, hey, I would rather put it under the colchon than go put it in a bank that's, you know, flopped or its parent has flopped and they just rebranded and they're back here again, right? I totally get that distrust. También tenemos que entender that this is a whole new country. You came for what? To build a better future. That means you have to also buy into the things that make it better, including its financial system. And we have to learn how to integrate into it, not just by getting a 401k or just getting a bank account. Like even getting a bank account, okay, yeah, I'm gonna trust the banks and let me put my money in there. A lot of them, like the savings accounts, they give you like what, 0.01%
1 cent, like
of interest.
Like,
yes,
9 pennies this year, like.
Hey, right? Pero then we have to learn like there's actually high yield savings accounts. And it's like, what the fudge is that? Okay, that is like the exact same thing, like a savings account, pero they pay you a higher
percentage
interest rate. Yes, percentage on interest rate. And it's like, okay, how come these banks can do it, but the one I'm using can't? Es porque some of these tend to be internet or online banks. So they save the money from not having to rent a brick and mortar building. They don't have maybe as many employees because everyone can work virtually. And so they get those savings and they pass it on to the clients, which is us. And I'm like, great. So like right now I'm with one, it's not exactly a high yield savings account. They're trying to bring a concept over from the UK where it's like you leave it there and it works really well for people who like, let's say you like buying lottery tickets every week.
Oh yeah.
This is to help those people because every day they draw like a ball. You're entered into a raffle, pero no pierdes nada de tu dinero. You can only win the money. So right now, like every week I'm getting like $2, which may be lower or higher from other high yield savings accounts, but I really won't know until the end of the year, right? And everybody's returns are different. And so that's where it's not like super stable, but there are other banks that are high yield savings account where they give you a set percentage. So like 1% or something. Before the pandemic, it was much better returns. Ahorita, you know, the interest rates, like they went down, they're starting to go back up, pero it's better than 1 cent on $1,000.
Oh my God, yes. I was gonna say, so you said usually these sorry, what did you call them? High interest.
Sorry, no, the one that I have right now is called Yada Bank, and that's the one where it's trying to bring the like raffle type concept. But it's really like, again, for those people that are like, oh, you know, I'd rather buy like a scratcher, I'd rather you know, play the lottery, but most of the time you're gonna lose. It's for that because you still get the same, like every day there's a ball drop and you can check it every day if you really want to, or honestly you could just leave it there and just come back and see how your money's grown.
Like it will build, like before you know it, you have so much more than again
and you're not risking your money, right? So because that's also what you got to make sure, that these banks are FDIC insured, and that is a thing in the United States where it says if the bank goes down, you're entitled to like, I think it's $250,000 per account or per bank that you're using. So making sure that, hey, maybe this bank has a really high return, but if it's not FDIC insured, I'm personally not putting my money there. I'm like, no.
Oh, wow. Okay. This is really important stuff to look for. So there you go. That's one way that we can grow, or a couple, I guess you said, that we can grow beyond just like the 401k, the types of things. Wow. Thank you for that.
And that's where one can put like their emergency fund, right? I feel like one of the first things that we start with in my methodology, first of all, it's making sure like that you've got your main things covered, like your roof over your head, food on the table, you're paying your bills. And then after that, it's like, let's get your emergency fund. And this is basically going to be the basis where you feel you have a solid foundation, a set of money, and you're not going to touch it unless there's an emergency. And some people like calling it something different, but for the point of like, for getting my point across, like it's an emergency fund. It comes handy in emergencies.
I'm like, I know sometimes Russell are hesitant because we're like, well, I don't have that much money to invest, but it's okay even to do just a little bit, like $5, whatever you have, it's okay. Like that's more than zero. So
yes,
right?
So that's where we get into investing. And for emergency fund, like that can go into a high yield savings account, porque you're not supposed to touch it anyway unless there's an emergency. So it's your last ditch effort anyway. When we get into investing, yes, there's the 401k, pero muchos no saben how much money do I need to put in to get my employer's full match. Like how much are they matching? Are they matching 3%? Are they matching 6%? Some people are like, I don't know, $20 go in every single time.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, let's get into the nitty gritty. Like, do you know what you're invested in? They're like, nope. Do you know how much you're paying in fees? And they're like, no. And it's like, yeah, let's get on that, right? Even if you have a 401k, let's see how much we can maximize that money and also how we can reduce those costs of just having that money, porque te están cobrando something.
Exactly. That's great. And for like that information, we would go to our employer and ask, or who would we go to?
Yeah, so you can go to your employer, you can ask HR. If they don't know, they're gonna send you over to the company that takes care of the brokerage account of your retirement account. And then you can ask them, you just call them up, and they're usually very good because they should have the plan set out of like, this is how much your employer matches. If you have a Roth option, Roth means you're going to pay taxes up front right now based on your tax bracket this year. Pero cuando lo saques, ya que te retires, it's going to be tax-free, no matter how the tax brackets have changed. And they could change for the better or the worse. If you look at the tax brackets back in the 90s, they were very different from the tax brackets we have now. Pero if you're like, hey, I don't want to pay taxes later, I don't want to worry about that, you can do the Roth option. The other option is the traditional option, means it's tax-free right now. And that even lowers your income at the end of the year in taxes. So you end up paying less taxes at the end of the year. Pero ya cuando te retires, that money, the growth, and the dividends are all going to be taxed when you take it out based on those tax brackets.
Okay. Wow.
So just understanding which bucket your money goes into, traditional or Roth, your employer's contribution, though, their match is always going to go to traditional. Some companies offer they can trade it to Roth, but just know that theirs is always in traditional. So if you're like, I want a 50-50 split, your employer might already be doing that, right? Theirs is going to traditional, so yours can go to Roth, and that's an even 50-50 split of the money that's in there.
That's dope. That to me sound like a bunch of number information, but I'm sure that others can understand it. I hope others can understand it better. But no, even just like learning that's like so much information already, and that goes way beyond. So thank you.
Yeah, it's definitely easier with like pictures, which is what I do in coaching. I'm like, do you need me to draw you a picture? And I don't mean it as an insult at all. I'm like, dude, I'm like a visual learner.
Same. Oh my God, I was gonna say, if you draw like little buckets of money and like, but yeah, then I'll totally understand. We'll translate it. Perfect. So then I guess let's dabble into let's compare men versus women real quick. Like you were sharing a couple of facts with me when we were planning for this, but I personally like just never thought about investing because I wasn't informed. You know, I felt a little like uneasy about it. But so why do you think that is, that sometimes women can take a little longer to begin investing? And then once they do, like, do you think they can actually be better than men?
So speaking from my own experience, I think some of us may be a little risk adverse. We're like, I worked hard to earn this money. I don't want to lose it. Are you kidding me? Like, I'm gonna put in the stock market and what happens? We don't know. Oh, no, I'm not trying to lose my money. So we tend to try to be very careful and think through a lot of things before we make our decision. And we're like, okay, I'm gonna finally invest. But once we do, we tend to have better returns than our male counterparts, por lo mismo that we've already done a lot of upfront research and we are confident in our decision of what we're invested in. So we're going to invest it and just leave it there, more than likely. Whereas men tend to kind of invest it and then they're like, okay, it's going up. I'm going to bring it back. I'm going to sell it. Okay, I'm going to invest in something else. Oh, shoot, it's going down. Let me bring it back. And like, I'm going to sell it and get the money. And then, you know, so es más como, it seems more like a game when they're doing it. Okay. Where it's more shorter term investments versus females, where if they're just going to leave it, it tends to turn into more long-term investments, which is advantageous at tax time. Because if you leave it there for more than 1 year, you tend to pay lower taxes on the same, it could be the same amount of money than if you leave your investment there for less than 1 year. So it's like completely different tax brackets. So if a female's leaving it there for over a year, because they're like completely sure and they're like not checking there, they're sure of what they invested in, they're gonna already have that advantage of paying less taxes. And as we learn about investing, it's like you're going to start seeing those returns more in the long-term investments than really the short-term investments. In the short term, the stock market could go up and down like a freaking roller coaster. But in the long term, yeah.
I got when the whole crypto trend was happening with the Dogecoin and like, ooh, up and down, up and down. And like, oh my, everyone was doing it. And now I'm not making anything, but they only put a little bit in there. It was just like, let me see if the trend like is really.
Yeah, let's see what's going on.
Yeah, just, be a part of it. But
definitely. And then, but when you see the long-term investment, at least, so crypto and in this case, I'm going to separate crypto from the regular stocks in the stock market, because at least the stocks in the stock market, we already know they're already regulated, right? We already know what the government is trying to tax you on. Crypto's still a developing space, and we still don't know all the laws that are forming around it. It's still a changing space. So when I talk about the stock market, I'm talking maybe like the S&P 500, so the top 500 companies in the stock market. When you look at the trend of the S&P 500, even though in the short term it might be going up and down like a roller coaster, in the long term, since it started, it's just gone up. Yes. And that's what that's the wave we're trying to ride, is that long-term wave. So yeah, if we're going to invest short term, we're probably going to lose just because of the stock market's like natural cycles, pero también from the cost of like selling that from our brokerage, and the cost of taxes, because we're doing short-term investment gains rather than long-term investment gains. So wrapping all this up, as mujeres, they tend to invest for longer because they've already done that research up front. And so that just helps them come out on top.
It almost sounds like you're saying, since we already do the overthinking and most things and are very like critical about how we do things, like let's use that power for our own money as well.
Yes.
That are already, God-given skills of like thought process for everything. We are very powerful when we apply it to things like our own money and our investing.
Like the overthinking comes in, it keeps us from starting to invest. Más si nuestros padres didn't teach us about that. Pero it comes very in handy once we are invested, because we just tend to leave it there.
To do it, we're like, we got this and we know exactly what we're doing. So might as well, invest.
Yeah.
I love that. Oh, thank you. That's so dope. Okay. So then you were just touching on it too about the long run. And that's something that I think I've experienced, and I know a lot of friends have experienced, where we tend to think about the now and like, do I have enough money in my bank now for today, for tomorrow, for this week? Are we even going to make it, And so that's why we tend to put the future off, and we're like, okay, we'll think about it when we get there. We'll think about retirement when we get there. Like that's a long time from now. So that tends to keep us back. But why do you think it's important to make sure we set ourselves up for the long run?
I think especially as mujeres, it's important to know how to manage your money, porque even if you get married to a male, right? Our male counterparts tend to live less than we do in terms of years. We tend to outlive our male partners. So that alone shows us that we need even more money than our husbands before we retire, because we're just going to live longer. So we're going to live through more of that inflation. We're going to live through more of that time.
I was wondering if this is like a factual thing, but then when I think about my own family, I know my granddad, or male, has passed away before my grandma's, and like they're being supported by the family. And so I do see that even in my own life and experience, and I'm like, damn, like I don't want to be like, old by myself and like not have any money. Like, so that makes so much sense.
Right. And so if we only teach our sons how to manage the money, y nunca las mujeres, what's going to happen when her male partner passes away? Like she's going to then be dependent on her family and her sons in order to be, taken care of. And although that is definitely like a big thing in the Latin family, as we move countries, the norms also start changing. There are some children that are like, listen, you know what, parents, like I know you're taking care of your parents, but let's start changing that expectation for me, because I'm going to try to take care of my children and not my children and my parents and my partner's parents as well.
True, I never thought of that part.
And so that comes down to, I totally lost my train of thought. But anyway, as you need more money to retire, let's go back to that point.
Yes.
A very big component of how much you can even put away is how much you earn in your lifetime. 6% of $100,000 salary is not the same as 6% of like $50,000, right? Even if you're going to get 6% into your 401k and your employer is going to match it, it's going to be half the dollar amount, even though you're making that same effort putting in 6%. So for women, it's also very detrimental with the wage gap in the United States, because if a male is starting to earn more and we're trying to retire too, first of all, we need more money just to retire because we're going to outlive our partners, and we're earning less. So we actually need to put percentage wise more money away than our male counterparts just to be able to like
I never thought of
live
that
our retirement.
How the gap would affect in the long run as well. Damn.
Yeah. So it's not just a today issue, it's a mañana issue too.
Wow. Oh my God. Yes, definitely told that. I kind of want to like go on a little tangent, be like, how like get more money for women at work now, because that whole gap concept, I understand it, but I'm like, that speaks to the now too, and how we can actually be empowered to ask for more money when we're going into a job, or try to close that gap sooner than later, so that you don't have to, like you just said, put even more because we're already earning less. Like,
yes.
That just frustrated me a
one
little
of the
bit.
things that I've started doing is, as the great resignation movement is going on, a lot of people have moved on in my team. And so as they're moving on, people are typically more nice about it and likely to share what their compensation was, especially if they're moving to a different company, because they're like, that was my old position, that was my old company. I really don't care. Like, and that doesn't hurt me any. So I've, gone to them and been like, hey, hope everything's going well at your new position. Do you mind sharing your compensation? I heard it's a great way to close the wage gap, and, like, make it about something bigger than yourself. And this was something that I heard in an IG live. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, because I was just going through a similar situation. I was like, how do I word it to not just be like, yo, can you share your compensation? Exactly. So there's like a couple of tricks, right? One of them is like, if it makes you feel more comfortable, maybe sharing over and under, not like an exact amount, but just like, hey, do you, over 95, under 85, like something like that. So the person doesn't, so they don't feel weird. Some people don't feel as weird just sharing a range. There is the other way where it's like, you can make it about bigger than yourself. And you're like, especially if it's a person that's typically more privileged in our society, just by the way they look, or the way their education level. You guys know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I was like, look, I know what you mean by that, but yes, definitely.
So the people that tend to get paid a little better, those are the people you want to ask, because as a mujer, and especially as a Latina, and if you got some melanin in your skin, you're probably, maybe based on the studies that have been done in the United States, probably on the lower end, right? And we're like, what are the people on the other end getting? So, going like, hey, I heard this is a great way to close the wage gap. If you'd be open to sharing your salary.
I know it's such a like taboo thing sometimes, but I feel like in this day and age, I personally don't understand why it tends to be so taboo, because like you said, it's bigger than us at this point. It's not, it's like an elephant in the room that most people are like, oh no, like that's so private. But at the end of the day, like, we're really supporting each other when we vocalize these things. And like you said, even if it's just like, give me a ballpark or whatever it is, I think it's very helpful again for everyone else. Like, it's win-win that way.
Yeah.
So and we close that up and make sure we're all getting compensated the right amount or whatever.
Yeah. And it also seems taboo, especially if you know the person, right? You're they're going to be weird about it. So another thing you can try is going on LinkedIn and cold messaging people that are in the same industry and same level as you, similar like work experience, or maybe a little higher, right? What's out there, know what to shoot for. Also, if you talk to any recruiters that are like from staffing agencies, and you can just give them your resume and be like, hey, what do you think is, out there for me, giving my experience? And so, they'll be like, girl, I got some jobs, especially right now in the great resignation. They might even be like, girl, I got a job perfect for you.
And you're going to ask for so much more. We came in this for like money coaching in terms of like personal finance, but honestly, you're giving us some job coaching too. So thank you. Like
this all goes into the money. It's all dinero. It's all like, like, yes, dinero won't buy you happiness, but it will sure damn get you close to it. And money, the lack of money, will bring you the opposite of will make you unhappy. Like, without money. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, like, so instead of looking at money as like a scarcity thing and like, oh, we don't have enough of it, like,
it's a tool.
You get to look at it as abundance, and like, I have money everywhere. It's available for me everywhere. I just have to choose and feel empowered to go get it in whatever avenue of my life. So whether it's that job, like you just coach us on, or personal finance, investing, whatever it is, we just have to believe that we deserve it and be abundant about it and say, I can go get that because I deserve it, not, oh no, like money, like it's not this bad thing. Like
Yes.
we just start falling in love with the relationship with it and how we do deserve it.
Yes. And if you come from an immigrant family, it's okay to be like, my parents have said like money isn't everything,
Exactly.
pero entender que ellos vienen de otro lugar diferente. My family is an indigenous family. They grew up and live up in the mountains and they eat things that grow in the mountains. If anything happens and one year their crops, which is their agricultural people, if that, goes bad and they don't make any money, they're still going to have food based on like the little plot of corn, little plot of tomatoes, the chickens that we got running around, they're still going to be able to eat. Pero now let's relocate to the United States. A lot of us live in the suburbs or the city. La comida no, some of us don't have gardens. You have to go to a store to use money to buy the food you're going to eat.
Necessary to live just for even your basic needs. So obviously.
Yes. So understanding that this may not be the way that our parents did it or our grandparents did it, pero también entender that we're not growing in the same environment that they are. They brought us over to a new country, pero con eso cambian también the social norms y how we have to look at our life and carry forward, especially in terms of money.
Mm-hmm. And if anything, that's like why they came here. It's for that opportunity to be able to develop in these areas. So money, it's no longer, that's why they're here. It's like more opportunity. There's so many more options. We just have to learn about it and be willing to, take action on it. So, well, thank you so much. I know my thing says we're running out of time, so I want to close out with you giving us your info. So thank you so much for joining us, Maribel. Before we close out, I know you're giving us a ton of good information, so I want to make sure that our viewers know how they can reach you or where they can find more of your content and possibly any services that you can provide.
Yes, so follow me on Instagram as Our Wealth Matters. I'm also on Facebook and TikTok, but Instagram is where I'm most active. And I'm also working on a personal financing coach tailored to immigrant families. In the meantime, I'm doing one-on-one coaching sessions, and you can just come with your, most like pressing questions. And you're like, listen, I already know. We can start with budgets. You're like, no sé nada. And we're like, all right, let's get you started. Or you're like, listen, I already know all these other steps. How do I get started investing, right? Like I have a 401k, what else can I be doing? And that's where, my passion for teaching females also comes in, as we were talking about a lot of mujeres, pero think about it, like children, before they even go to school, they start learning from their moms or their tias, right? Their elders. If we teach just one woman how to do personal finance, how to manage her finances, we're not just affecting her, we're affecting the generations after her and maybe her grandchildren as well. We're all here new to the United States. We don't have a lot of generations of people ahead of us that we can ask for. So, ¿quién nos va a cuidar? Nomás nosotros nos vamos a cuidar nosotros. So, raza cuida raza, and that's why I'm here doing it.
Generation. Oh, I love that. Wow, that's like you're literally the critical piece to your own legacy for your future family to come. So that's amazing. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you're here. That was super fun. And yeah, I'll leave all her information down in the caption and definitely link everything so you can reach out and check out.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Bye.